So I've really been enjoying the combination of this Gibson SG and this Bartel amp recently. And I've been looking for something to inspire me for a while. I've been sort of a little bit out of the habit of making YouTube videos and playing the guitar a lot. There's been lots of other stuff going on. But today this drew me back in here, and I've been playing around with a couple of different things that I thought would be really interesting to show you, and possibly to sort of extend into a sort of a little series about how I'm going to make a rig out of this. As I said, I really love this Gibson SG and the Bartell together. There's something about the clean tone that's like not as sparkly and bright as a Fender amp, but has a bit more sort of depth to it. And also having the vibrola on the SG just gives me something else and a sort of shimmeriness that I really enjoy. But when I was recording the Bartell, it was a bit too sort of bass heavy and a little bit dark. And I wanted to make it all feel a little bit lighter and a bit brighter. So I thought, why not try using a different speaker? Now, I didn't want to change the speaker in the Bartell because it's a beautiful amp, and although I could change the speaker, I didn't need to, because I could plug into a different speaker in another cabinet. Luckily, I had this Magnetone here, and I've always liked the sound of the Magnetone amp itself through this. I was just curious, what is the Bartell going to sound like through a completely different cabinet? And that's something with a combo you don't always get to do. You sort of think of the combo as the amp and that's it. But actually trying different cabinets and speakers and things is something I've been meaning to do anyway, and something we'll probably get into on the channel. So we're going to hear a bit more of just the Bartell in a second, and then we're going to hear it where you're not going to hear the actual speaker of the Bartell at all. It's completely plugged into the Magnetone. So let's hear that a little bit. And then after that, I'm going to do something that I think is even better than that, but we'll get there in a minute. So yeah, I think the Bartell is a fantastic amp. It's lovely to play. It's not as brittle and as bright as an actual Fender amp, even in this sort of blackface setting that on the amp. It has something else to it, a bit more harmonics, but also this SG with these Sunbear, I want to say T-tops, sort of late 60s style humbuckers as opposed to 50s ones. So they're not as chewy maybe, and they're a bit sort of cleaner and a bit more restrained, and I really like that with this guitar. Yeah, the whole thing I think just sounded great. But when I then plugged into the Magnetone cabinet, I wasn't sure what to expect, to be honest with you. It was almost a little bit sacrilegious, given that one of Bartel's selling points is the handmade cabinetry and all of that stuff. But I thought it sounded brilliant, to be honest with you. It just felt a bit bigger, a bit lighter. It's a bigger cabinet than the actual combo amp, and it has a bit less bass response. And so I found that really handy for this style, because when you're sort of playing full chords and things, you don't want the bottom end to take over completely. At the same time, you don't want the top end to be shrill, and the Bartel amp itself doesn't really get shrill. It's so beautifully designed. but it works really well with the Magnetone. Having said that, I thought, inspired a little bit by the idea of Magnetones being stereo. I don't have a stereo one, but I thought, why not try the Bartel plugged into the Magnetone as an extension speaker? I've never done this with a combo before, but on the back of the Bartel there is a socket for that, and you can change the resistance or the load so that it works, because you need 4 ohms if you're going to plug into 2 8-ohm speakers like this. And this is where I was in for a surprise. I think it just sounds incredible. So as soon as I played that and then listened to the recording, I thought, yeah, that's opened up a whole new thing. If you've never tried it, if you haven't had the ability, it's not hard to pick up a second-hand cab that's not expensive. I've got an old Zilla one that I found on Reverb, second-hand 1x12 for 100 quid, and I saw lots of others when I did that. We're going to try that cabinet another time, perhaps. But it's a closed back one, and I wanted to use this open back. But instead of having 2 amps, just using an extension speaker allows you to play around with the space a bit more, and you get this other effect and this real airiness, and that was really inspiring to me. So it made me think, going forward, maybe I'm going to try the Bartel with various other speakers and cabinets that I've got, just to see what suits it best, what suits it when it's in its tweed sort of settings. Maybe I'll plug it into something completely different when it's in its tweed settings rather than this Magnetone one. We can sort of play around with that next time. And then I've got to add some pedals. There's no pedals in this at all. And how is that going to work sort of in terms of phasing if I use sort of modulation stuff? Will I try the Magnetone amp itself? So I've got a 2 amp setup, which is not something I played around with for a few years actually on the channel, because A, it's a pain in the arse to set up and to record right and get the phasing right. And B, I do like a simple rig, but I think at this moment in time, I'm looking for a bit of largeness, a bit of bigness, in the setup, just to sort of wake up a different part of my brain again and get me really sort of creative and inspired. So yeah, this is, I think, the start of a new little journey for me, right? Just to create and go in depth on this rig, because the last couple of years on the channel, I've chopped and changed between rigs. I've been doing my Hendrix stuff, I've been doing my own stuff, I've been doing like Delta Blues things. Every time you see me, I'm playing a different amp, a different guitar, a different set of pedals. And sometimes in that, I've lost myself a bit and feel like, who am I, like, in the playing? And it's a good timing because it's my 40th birthday next month, and I don't have any gear purchases planned particularly, and I'm not going to, because I don't need to. I need to go deep into what I've got in here. So I want to play with this SG for a while, and see what is the best rig I can possibly make to go with it for the various sounds I have in mind for it. This clean, and then it will also do a really beautiful rootsy blues sound, and then something a bit more aggressive. There's Marshall sounds on the Bartel, there's tweed sounds, and there's this blackface sound. So I think next time we should try the Magnetone amp as well next to it and compare. I get a lot of questions about the Bartell, and I get a lot of questions about 2-Rock. But I think because I haven't used my Magnetone a lot on the channel, I don't get many questions about them. People don't think of it in the same vein. But the Magnetone amp as well is a beautiful sounding amp. I guess it's quite loud though. So yeah, that's what I've got planned for the next several weeks. I hope you enjoy that. If you think you will, or you might get inspired yourself, then please subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. And I'll see you pretty soon.